Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Tuesday. That means another virtual happy hour. I'm your host, Greg Avola, founder of Untapped. I'm super excited to be here today. It's going to be a great show. Welcome to Canada Week. Get excited. We're going to talk all week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, to Canadian brewers, influencers, and industry professionals to get more information about Canada and their beer scene. Before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about Untapped 10th anniversary. You're probably sick of me hearing talking about it so far, but today was a big day. We've got our badges that I'm showing you on our screen right now. These are the top 5 badges for our badge contest. If you haven't heard, we're having a live stream party on October 24th from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, and we asked the community to design badges to be earned during that live stream. We had about 20 great contest items come in, and we whittled it down to 5 badges to vote for. So go to untapped.com/10/contest to vote to see which one of these badges will make it as the official badge for the live stream. Very exciting stuff. Personally, my favorite is the Retro 10, but don't let that skew your voting. Vote for what you'd like to see up there from there. So with that aside, I want to bring in my guest today, Émilie Leclerc. Hopefully I got that right. Émilie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Very exciting stuff. Now, obviously, you know, the first thing we do with our virtual happy hour is drink some beer. So let me turn it over to you and talk about what you're drinking on your side for tonight's show.
Excellent. Well, actually, I was already working on something before. So this is the first beer of the night. It's Tête de Houblon from Tête d'Allumette, Match Head in English. So it's a series where they always put the hops forward. So that one is Mosaic Sour Brett IPA, which is awesome. And you cannot find them on Instagram, but you can find them, I think, on Facebook, and they are incredible.
Awesome.
So,
what else are you drinking?
Yeah, and this is coming very soon in like 2 sips. This is Pit Caribou, so a brewery from Gaspésie. They are very, very well known here, and this one is a special edition of their Goza, and so it's a mango one, and it's incredible, super, refreshing, a very summery beer. But I keep it for rainy days like today to make summer last a little bit longer.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, what I'm drinking on my side is I'm drinking a Wintoberfest. This is a brewery called Wibby Brewing. I believe it's out of Colorado. Let's make sure that I get this right here. Yep, it's in Longmont, Colorado. This is a Oktoberfest style beer, and you can see a picture right here. This one is like a lager Oktoberfest, and obviously we're in the Oktoberfest kind of period, although getting into more winter. So it's a mix of winter and Oktoberfest all in one. So you can't really lose a situation like that. So if you're out there now, we'd love to know what you're drinking. So use the comments on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Let us know what you're drinking, and make sure you check in your beer as well to Untapped, because obviously checking your beer is very, very good, and we'd like to do that. So also, if you not know, we're turning 10, obviously. We talked earlier about we're having some exclusive merchandise that we actually make. This is one of the glasses that we have for our 10th anniversary celebration there. So it's pretty cool. Check us out on the store at store.untapped.com, and you'll be able to see some cool things there. So we got our beer. We're pouring them out, and we'll do a little cheers to everybody. And make sure you put in your comments what beer you're drinking. And cheers. Thanks so much for being part of the show.
Cheers. Awesome. Thanks for having me again.
Awesome. Well, now that we got the beer in the way, not out of the way, we always like to talk about the beer. So let's take why don't we get a little background of yourself and a little about your blog that we were talking about in the pre-show, how important it's been now given COVID and things of that nature that are going on. So a little bit about your backstory and how you got into the craft beer space.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to start with how I got into the craft beer space first. So I met my boyfriend. I was only drinking white beer. I didn't even know the difference between Hefeweizen and wheat beer. It was just like white beer. And so my boyfriend Carl, who also does all my pictures on Instagram, he said, you're gonna try something else. Let's try IPAs. What? And I fell in love with the hoppy part of the beer, because the more commercial things are maltier, and I like very crisp, dry, hoppy flavors, but I didn't know at that time. So So anyways, so this is how I was introduced to craft beer. And as for my blog, as some of you may know, I'm an actress. So I do acting to win my bread. And when I turn 30, there's like a phenomena in Quebec. There's a lot of characters for young women, like from 15 to 28, let's say. And then there is a gap. And then you have characters, mother characters. So from 35, 6, 7, 8. So I'm like right in between those two chairs as we speak. So, I was bored. So instead of, going crazy waiting for the phone to ring, I said, I'm going to do a beer blog. Why not? It was a choice between politics, but people are so mean with women in politics. So I said, I'm gonna go with beer. It's more, beer is fun. So this is why I started my Instagram blog, and I got caught up so much into it since then, and I love it, and that's it. So this is how it started, and I'm so it started very like. I love IPAs and I want to, make people discover what a great style it is. But now it's just like I want to let people know there's so many local breweries around you. And like even in Montreal, like 5 years ago, there was like 2 big breweries. That's it. And now, where do you sleep? I mean, if you're downtown, I can tell you to go this, there. If you're in the other part of the city, I can, there's so many of them now. So it's a way to, if you're traveling, well, not now, but back then to Montreal, you just hit my blog and you have a lot of cues as where to go to drink when you're in Montreal or Quebec province area.
Very cool. Exciting stuff. We were talking before. I've been to Montreal once when I was much younger, as most Americans probably on the East Coast have traveled to Montreal to enjoy a fresh beverage under the age of 21. Because of course, it is legal over an 18 over there. So that's obviously very exciting from that perspective. Now, if you joined us late, we're talking to Émilie Leclerc, founder of Le Petit Blog and certified Cicerone beer server. If you have a question for her, we'd love to put her on the hot seat. She probably gets asked a lot of questions being an actress all the time, but let's give her some good questions to ask. So go to Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube and ask those questions. We'd love to put them on the board and have her answer those about Canadian beers, maybe some breweries in Montreal that you want to hit by. Anything, just ask the question. I'd love to hear from you. I'll get it started here. Obviously, what would you mentioned about the IPAs, and that became something that you really became interested in the beer world. What are some great breweries in your local area that you really enjoy their IPAs? And the second half of that question is more about the New England IPA or the hazy IPAs. Has that craze made its way up to Canada from that perspective?
Oh, yes. Like if you have a brewery and don't have a New England on your menu, like you need to have like effing great other beers, because people, if you're a new brewery and you go with a blonde, a red, and a white, ouch, you really need to have a New England. People, I mean, they only want New England now. I'm talking to a lot of brewers, and some of them, it's too, like some of them are super like, yeah, let's try new hops, let's try new things. But some of them are just like, no, I don't. I just want, classical styles. Anyways, great place to drink great IPAs. I would say like my top one. Actually, I have a top 2. It's Messorem Brassitorium. So they specialize in New England. So you have any type of New England, from low ABV to high ABV, from mono hops to 5 different hops. They like to play with all of this. And also Brewski, pub and tap room. I think it's how they write their name. I just call it Brewski. But they have amazing IPAs there too. Very like creamy, and it smells like when you go to Vermont in the summer and you have like those whiffs of fresh hops, it smells like that. So those would be my 2 like favorite place for a juicy IPA. They also have like great, more regular IPAs, but I mean, I'm more into juicy stuff. So.
as the world is from that perspective, being so close, especially in the New England area that I am in, the Connecticut area, being so close to the border in Canada, we hear a lot of people from Canada get a lot of American beers, but we don't hear about a lot of Canadian breweries coming down to the States. What are some of your favorite American breweries that you get up in Canada that are easy to kind of obtain that, maybe just interesting to hear what kind of stuff gets shifted upwards into the Canada
area? Well, pre-COVID, obviously, but
right.
Il Farmstead, Hudson Valley, Other Half, Lawson's Finest.
Oh, wow.
Everything in Boston, like Trillium, Treehouse.
Wow.
Yeah,
you get a lot of good stuff up there.
Yes.
Very, very cool. Well, it's a great question that came up here from Rob. It says, do you notice a big difference in beers between regions in Canada, east to west?
Wow. Canada is a big country, so I don't have the occasion of trying a lot of West Coast beers, but of course I love New England IPA, so this is what I drink the most. I would say it's pretty much the same, like as term of quality. And before, I would say West Coast was a bit more in advance than us on the East Coast, but we're getting there. Like Quebec and Ontario, their craft is as strong as BC. Well, Quebec and Ontario are East Coast, BC is West Coast. So
that I do know. I know I am. We are stupid Americans here sometimes, but I do know that is a fact there. Well, the other interesting part about this question is, but we always think about East Coast and West Coast beers from an IPA perspective. Do you feel like there's a lot of American influence in the brewing process up in Canada, or is it more about I guess you answered that question. Yeah. Well, how does that influence work from that side? And are they is it because like Toronto is so close to more of an American city, for lack of a better word, and that kind of moves its way up, or where is the influence coming from these areas?
Social media also have a lot to do with it. For example, there was a trend in the US, I think 2 years ago, where everybody was putting glitter in beers.
Yes, I remember that.
Last year it was here. So I'm sure, I mean, it's a lot of from the social media, I think, because a lot of brewers that I know are very into social media, so they're very aware of the trends. And so I say many of the American trends that we found here, like a year later, comes from what I think from social media.
Absolutely. This is a question from Ashley, and Ashley asks, are sours and pastry stouts making their way up to Canada? They are really big here in Texas. I don't even know how much sugars are in them. That's very true. Is that style gone up there at all in terms of popularity from those kind of sours and pastry stouts?
I wish, but not yet. We only starting to see pastry stouts here. So in a year, maybe, because I never had a pastry. I heard pastry stouts. Oh, sorry, I read pastry sours. I was like, I never had a pastry sour. But pastry stout, yes, they're starting to come. And sours, of course, because there's a lot of, it's a great way to convince a more feminine part of the market to drink beer. So sours, every brewery have their sours as well. But pastry stout, not enough to answer your question.
Yeah, pastry stouts are one of those new kind of styles that we've seen very, very popular within a lot of breweries here in the States. And, it's actually a new style on Untapped. We actually did not have a particular style for pastry stouts until recently when it was voted in by our style committee, just because, as we talked about New England IPAs being a new style that just came out as well in the past, beers change and the styles change all the time. So trying to adapt to them is really important.
Like music.
Exactly. Or fashion. It's never complete. It's always not done. So let's put another question up here on the board. This one's from Eric. I really love your blog and very impressed by how many you've grown up with a blog. Where do you see your blog in a few years, and where do you see yourself in regard to the beer scene?
Wow, great question, Eric. Where I see myself in a few years, I would like to be, let's say, out of Instagram. Like, I want to keep posting and everything, but I would like to do talk about beer on French radio, talk about beer in very famous Canadian talk shows, and be more like be able to reach to my mom and dad crowd. You know what I mean? Because it's easier. We're young. It's easier to reach out to younger crowds. But I would like to, be able to make the 55, 75 years old be able to drink more beer. So I would love to, make a lot of radio, have a little show and talk about my craft beer discoveries. I would like also when travel is going to be permitted again, I would like to have like a TV show on, how beer is. It's just because beer have bad press. Like it's all, maybe not in the US, but here still it's really associated with, party or low life, or, you're there with your big beer playing the lottery machine. It's not like sophisticated. So I would like to have like a TV show where I can show that beer is super like a cultural glue. It made me discover so many great people, and I'm sure so I would like to be more out there, but in older crowds, to make the message go through and democratize craft beer.
There you go. Right. I like
craft beer everywhere.
You're starting your first TV show here, so I guess you're all good. We're not broadcasting live to the entire world, but we're trying to. So we're gonna get this segment off the road from that side. So here's another great question from Brian, and Brian asks, any uniquely Canadian ingredients used at beer that we would never heard of in the United States? Poutine stout as opposed to pastry stout. Great question, Brian.
Yeah, it's a great question, and actually, that it needs to be done. The poutine stout, why not?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I heard about new brewery called Brett et Sauvage, and they use a lot of local aromas. They're from Gaspésie, so it's a lot of it's on the seaside. It's very like nature, and they use like unique plants from Gaspésie to develop some kind of some strains of yeast or to add directly in the beer. So, but it's not maybe the plants they take. We can find it in Boston. I don't know, but they do something like very pinpointed, local pinpointed. Is that clear?
That is clear to me. I got it perfectly fine. Awesome. Well, just in case you're joining us late, we're talking to Émilie Leclerc, founder of Le Petit Bière. I did not do French in high school, so I'm failing miserably with the pronunciation, so I apologize. No. But if you want to ask her a question, use your chat on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We'd love to be able to talk about your questions and ask it there. We've been talking a little bit about some of the beer influences in Canada. Obviously, we talk about a little about the U.S. influences from some of the hoppier beers, the other halves, the Triums, the Trilliums. Obviously, with COVID, it makes traveling a lot difficult. But in terms of local flavor, is there an equivalent to like a Trillium or Treehouse in Canada that everyone looks at from a perspective? Oh, that's the beer I want to get. I'll trade across the country for. Is there any big names that maybe most Americans may not know exactly from a Canadian perspective?
Yeah, sure. I would have again two names. First one I already named is Messorem Brassitorium. There is lineup from day one that they open. Like every time they release a haze bomb, and there's a different, like 2-3 different ones per week. It's always like sold out within hours. It's crazy. So if you go and they are in Montreal. So if you go in Montreal, you need to stop there and buy 4, 8, 12 beers because you're gonna love them all, I'm telling you. So this is the first one, and the other one is only open in the summer. But if you go out season, you can find his beers in the grocery stores or around the brewery. So the name of the brewery is Oval, Auval. So this is that guy. Everything he touched turns to gold.
Wow.
He's actually started at Pit Caribou, and after he started his own thing, like the Pit Caribou is at Percé, and the village just after, which is Val Espoir. He started there, and he is a true artist.
obviously being an actress and traveling for your profession, are there any other countries that you've been to besides the United States that you've been like, wow, the beer selection is amazing here. I never thought this would be here. Any other countries that kind of come to mind from a beer discovery perspective?
Sure. I don't know if I call it a country, but Hong Kong. It's so different from the rest of China, so I don't know if it's a country, but for me, it is a totally different thing. But Hong Kong, I was flabbergasted. Do you say that here in the US? Flabbergasted? Yes. Okay. I didn't know if it was only a Canadian thing. So yeah, I was flabbergasted by how many incredible beers they have. Like they have strong breweries like Young Master Ales, Guelo. Also, they sell in Hong Kong, but they are based in Vietnam. It's called Heart of Darkness. What? And especially their age stout, because they use, like, for example, like Chinese peppers, like that gives like a little spicy twist to the stout that you don't find here because we don't have access to those kinds of peppers. And no, I was impressed. Like, I was going on Untapped and like the ratings were so bad, and I was like, oh well, I'm here, so I might as well try them, you know. Luckily I didn't listen to the reviews because wow, or maybe the reviews were super old and the brewery got better, but wow, I was flabbergasted by what they had in Hong Kong. Really, really, really.
That's awesome. I've never been over to China or any of the areas over there, so it's definitely have to put it on my list, obviously, after COVID from that perspective. Exactly. Speaking of the inverse part of that question, are there areas that you have not been to, maybe in the United States, or other areas that you want to go or on your bucket list from a travel perspective, and why?
Yes, well, West Coast, baby. Yes, I would love to travel the West Coast because I'm since we're in Quebec, we're East Coast, so it's easy to drive down, And my parents have a condo in Orlando, so if I want to go all the way down and sleep there, it's easier. But on the West Coast, it's like it's far. So if one day I could have the time, because I won't go there for 3 days or 5 days, I want to stay there for a few weeks because I will have so much to see, and I heard so many great things about West Coast Brewery. And so, yeah, I would love to go there and also go back to Belgium because last time I went was in 2015 and my taste buds were not as developed as they are today. So I would be so curious to go back and, retry the beers that I had and loved back then to see, where I am at. That in Germany too.
Absolutely. That's a good point you brought up about, your palate changing from your taste buds from that perspective. I remember when I first got into beer many, many years ago, it was an interesting kind of perspective that I feel like that I've grown as a beer drinker from the very beginning until now. Obviously having access to great beer in the Canada area, what were some of your first beers that you had that kind of got you onto it? You talked about white beers in the very beginning of our show, but what were some of the beers that kind of turned you over? So look, this is not what I'm usually tasting. This is fantastic. What are some of those beers there?
Samuel Adams, the lager. It was available here in Quebec, so that one it was one of my first more complex beers. Also, Duchesse de Bourgogne. I don't know what's the brewery, but it was the first time that I had it tastes like a balsamic vinegar, but it like a Udger. Is that Udger? It's a sour, but
I understood that part.
Yeah. Anyways, I cannot remember the type of beer, but yeah. So it was like something I never tasted before. So these two and IPA. Let's think IPA. Actually, it's Boreal IPA, but in Quebec, Boreal is the oldest brewery. So they have been first known for their classic beers, and there's an IPA included in those classics of that one. But now I don't like their classical. I prefer their new series that they because since they were older, old breweries, you tend to snub them a little, so they wanted you to be back in the game. So they hired this new head brewer, super young, and he's like a Ken, and he's hiking with his Boreal beer. Their branding is amazing. But anyway, so before they hire him, they had their classical size, and the IPA in those classicals. Boreal was one that I was having a lot too, actually. Oh, and also Blanche de Bruxelles. The little naked baby with that.
Yes. So that one. Yep.
That one. So yes.
I think it's really interesting, talking with a lot of people in the industry, talking about their first beers. It's just, everyone has a different perspective of what that was like. I mean, you talk about Sam Adams and Boston Lager, and that's something that all pretty much Americans have seen everywhere, right? So that's like, oh, that it's a regular beer, but your experience was different, and that's what makes beer such an amazing part. People do is everyone has their opportunities to kind of taste something and enjoy it, and have their own reaction to it. Because my first craft beer was a Rare Voss from Brewery Omegang in upstate New York over here, and from like someone who goes from a light beer to that beer, which is almost like a quad or a double, is insane, right? But that's the flavors. You're tasting things you may not have tasted before, and that kind of makes yourself aware of these things. So it's really cool to hear those stories and see people come from those from a beer perspective. That's
why I don't like to bash beers, because it might be my taste buds that are that don't perceive that flavor, or maybe I don't know, oranges, so everything that's gonna taste like oranges I'm not gonna like. So this is why I don't talk shit about beers and breweries, and because we never know, and second, why talk about the negative?
It's true. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of positive when it comes to, beer drinking and getting your taste buds acclimated. I think it's a really important thing. And, you learn from that, and you get to experience new stuff. And that's what beer is all about from that side.
Fun.
Absolutely. Let's get back to the questions here. This one's from Carlos. And Carlos said, a craft beer bar you recommend in Old Montreal. Putting you on the spot here.
Brewski. I don't remember. I think it's Brewski Tap Room and Brew Pub, something like that. But just type Brewski, BREWSKEY, Brewski. These. So they have their own beer they brew on site, and you can eat. You can they have cans that you can bring home. You can fill up crowlers too. So that would be my number one recommendation for Old Montreal.
There you go, Carlos. You heard it here first. That's where you want to go once we're able to travel again from that perspective. Here's another question from Bud. What West Coast breweries would you love to try? You talked about traveling to the West Coast. Are there any breweries off the top of your mind that you definitely want to visit?
Monkish. The Guard. Okay. I cannot remember the name. It's brewery, but written in a.
The brewery.
Okay, so
BRUER. Yep. That's a great little plug as well.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Also, I love everything by Bear Bottle. I think it's the name.
Yep, I see it on my wall right behind me.
Yes.
So yes, they are so awesome. There, definitely recommend them as well.
I had one beer from them because my brother-in-law is Californian. So when it's Christmas time, I get some special gifts, and he's the one who made me discover that brewery, actually, because I didn't know it was there. So yeah, I would love to explore. And many more. I'm forgetting so much of them, but yeah.
There are a lot of breweries, obviously, on the West Coast from that perspective. And that's kind of where, we talk about the whole difference between the West Coast and East Coast. And we have the West Coast IPA, which is more pioneer from that perspective, and less of the juicier from the East Coast IPA, which has been dubbed New England IPA, that pretty much now everyone makes. But yeah, there are a lot of great breweries on that area. I've never been to Monkish, but that's been highly recommended by a lot of different people there, especially if you're going up to the Northern California area. Russian River is a big one that people love to travel for. The Planet of the Elders, my personal favorite beer from all perspective there. So that's a great one as well. So that's definitely a spot to visit on there from that side. Ultimately, as we kind of look at beer holistically across the country, I think one of the cool things about what beer does is that it brings people together. And obviously, in Canada, yesterday was Canadian Thanksgiving. From that perspective there, what's the traditional Canadian Thanksgiving beer that people have up there is the standard beer everyone drinks, whether it's good or bad. I'm curious to know what the culture is like from that side.
We actually don't celebrate Thanksgiving that much,
Okay.
It's more an American. We're just like, yay, one more day of weekend. But because I never celebrated it my whole life,
right.
So I would say Oktoberfest style, because it's what's
available.
Ouais, c'est ça. Like, it's what you find the most at this time of the year. That would be my guess.
There you go. Well, it's one of those things that Americans just think of what's on the calendar from a Canadian Thanksgiving, that it's the same thing over up there. So it's good information to know on that part there as well. I think, the other part of what makes, beer really good is obviously communities as well. Obviously in the United States, we have, the Brewers Association, which covers most of the small breweries, the craft breweries in there. Is there an equivalent like that over in Canada that kind of supports the craft brewers in there? I know there's a lot of legislation now about different beers and stuff like that over there. Is there a group that kind of brings everybody together from a craft beer perspective?
Well, I don't know Canada wide, but yes, in Quebec there's the Brewers Associations. There is because in Quebec we don't sell beer. Well, we do sell it in liquor store, but it's more like things from Europe or US, or we find beer in specialized beer store and grocery store. So there is an association for these person as well to help them negotiate and stuff like that. So yes, there is a few, and I also like, it's not an association, but I really like that journal. It's called a Brewers Journal of Canada. So I do a little bit of translation for them, and they're like a mine of information about what's going on the craft beer scenery, but not only in Quebec or Ontario, in the whole country. And I really like to read and watch their conference as well, but it's not an association, but still very pertinent.
Good stuff. Well, we got time for a few more questions here. Let's go to a question from Anthony. And Anthony asked, have you ever experienced any pumpkin beers that you enjoy in this time of year? Any pumpkin beers you like from the Canadian provinces?
Yes, I really like the Saint-Ambroise Pumpkin Ale. Very classic. It tastes a little bit like Samuel Adams Pumpkin Ale, actually. So yeah, it's there's a lot of spices, but that one is very well balanced, like not too much, because pumpkin doesn't really taste. You have to put a lot of it to distinguish little notes. So that's why they put a lot of spices into pumpkin beers, but sometimes it's overwhelming, too much spices. But that one is great from Saint-Ambroise.
Very good. Last question here will go from David, and David says, do your beer styles change as the seasons change? Obviously, we just talked about pumpkin beers being part of the fall. Do they kind of prefer based on whether it's summertime or the wintertime in terms of what you like?
Yes and no. Yes, because when it's cold and I spend the day outside and I get inside, I really want to a strong stout to warm myself up a little bit. But there is things that I drink all year round, like New England IPAs. This anytime. But other than, yes, I would say I would tend to drink more sours in the summertime, and I tend to drink more imperial stout, barrel aged stout, and stronger beers, darker beers in the winter. And New England all year long.
Now, I got to ask you this question, before I let you go. In terms of your IPA, kind of, getting into IPAs, did you always start with the regular American IPAs, or you started when the New England IPAs were there? Because you mentioned about loving the hops, and I figured, because New England IPAs are a little bit more juicier and less hoppier, did you get into hops with the original IPA first and make your way over there?
That's it. Yeah. So I started with American IPAs, like more traditional, and then West Coast came in. So I was really into West Coast. I actually really enjoy West Coast, but I like them more dry, and I don't like when they're too malty, too caramel. So, anyways, but yeah, I made my way gradually from American IPA to West Coast to New England.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being part of the show tonight. I had a lot of fun. It felt like it went by so quick.
I know.
Thank you so much for talking beer with us. I want to give you an opportunity to tell everyone watching where they can find you on the internet or any other plugs that you'd like to give at this point for the show.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to find me, you can find me under the name La Petite Bière, like I have written here. There. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. TBD.
There we go. Right.
So there you go. Yeah, and if you want to have insight on Quebec province and Canada craft beer scene, and as well as sometimes American beers, because I have connections. So don't hesitate to follow me. Yes. And thank you for being there, everyone. I'm very, very, very happy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Awesome. Thanks everybody for watching our Tuesday edition of Virtual Happy Hour. It's day one of Canada Week. We got some great guests coming up this week for Canada Week. Tomorrow we're talking to Greg from the owner of Blind Enthusiasm Brewing Company. Great name, Greg. He's a former game developer for a product that we'll talk about tomorrow. I'm sure everyone's heard of it before. So we'll be back here Wednesday, tomorrow at 7 p.m. as well for a new show there. Then on Thursday, we're going to be talking to Matt Johnson and Rob Russell, who are the owners of Collective Arts Brewing Company, another Canadian brewery that you probably get a little bit in the States here. I know I have. And that will be also at 7 p.m. as well. So we really appreciate you checking us out Canada Week. And a reminder again to go to untapped.com/10/contest to vote for the badge. It's going to be airing on our party on the 24th. There's some great badges here that we'd love to see make it into the finals of being picked for the badge. So really appreciate you watching tonight. Thank you so much for enjoying the show. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for a conversation with Blind Enthusiasm Brewing